We all tend to think of science as this pure, clear window onto reality, right? The most objective source of truth we have. But what if that window is never actually perfectly clean? What if the person looking through it always, inevitably adds their own smudge? Well, today, that's exactly what we're digging into, the surprisingly shaky foundations of objectivity itself.
This quote, it really just cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? It's a direct challenge to that core belief that science can somehow stand apart from human perspectives and values. But is that really true? Let's find out. So, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the classic ideal of what perfect objectivity is supposed to look like. Then, we'll hit it with a few major challenges, from a wild thought experiment to the very real biases in today's algorithms. We'll even uncover a dirty little secret in scientific publishing. And then finally, we'll land on a pretty radical new way to think about what being objective really means. All right, first things first. To really get why objectivity is so tricky, we have to understand what the ideal is, this almost mythical goal of a perfect, untainted view from nowhere. Here it is, the classic textbook definition. The goal is to describe the world as it actually is, totally separate from us, the people looking at it. And, it's a really noble goal, to create knowledge that's completely free from our personal baggage, our biases, our values. The philosopher Thomas Nagel gave this whole idea a fantastic name, the view from nowhere. Think of it like a God's eye view of the universe. It's the ultimate ambition of objectivity, to see reality without the filter of your own mind, your body, your culture, or anything else. Nagel even broke down how you'd theoretically get there. Step 1, you get that what you see is caused by stuff out there in the world. Easy enough. Step 2, you accept that that stuff exists even when you're not looking at it. Makes sense. But step 3, that's the giant, maybe impossible leap, to actually imagine what that stuff is like, completely separate from any point of view. And that leads us right to the heart of the problem. Is that even possible? I mean, our minds are always somewhere. We are always looking at the world from inside a body, within a culture, at a specific point in history. So can we really, truly escape that perspective?
That question brings us to a super famous thought experiment that really starts to poke some serious holes in this ideal. It's called What Mary Didn't Know, and it makes you wonder if objective facts are really the whole story.
Okay, so imagine this woman, Mary. She is a genius neuroscientist, and she has learned every single physical, objective fact there is to know about color. She knows the exact wavelengths of light and how they hit the retina, which neurons fire in the brain. I mean, everything a textbook or a scanner could possibly tell her. But here's the massive twist. Mary has lived her entire life locked in a completely black and white room. She's only ever read black and white books and seen black and white screens. So she knows all the facts about the color red, but she's never actually experienced seeing it. So here it is, the million-dollar question. When Mary finally walks out of that room and sees a bright red tomato for the very first time, does she learn anything new? I mean, really think about that. She already knew every single physical fact. So what could possibly be left to learn?
This is where it gets really mind-bending. The thought experiment suggests there are two kinds of knowledge. On one side, you've got the objective, physical facts, wavelengths, neurons. Mary had all of that. But on the other side, you have the subjective experience, the what-it's-likeness of actually seeing red. Philosophers have a word for this, qualia. And if Mary does learn something new, well, that means our purely objective view from nowhere is missing something absolutely fundamental about reality. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a cool little philosophical puzzle, but this idea has huge, real-world consequences, especially when we try to build supposedly objective things like AI, and our unexamined human perspectives get baked right into the code. And it turns out, our biases absolutely come along for the ride. A system called Compass, which was meant to predict if a criminal would reoffend, turned out to be biased against black prisoners. An AI hiring tool literally taught itself to prefer male candidates, even when female ones were more qualified. And why does this happen? Well, it's because these algorithms learn from historical data, and our history is full of human bias. So the AI doesn't erase our prejudice, it just learns it, automates it, and sometimes even makes it worse. And trying to fix this is way more complicated than it sounds, because there's no single objective definition of what fair even means. Is it fair to make sure outcomes are proportional across all groups, or is it fair to make sure every qualified person has an equal shot regardless of their group?
The thing is, mathematically, you can't always have both, and that means we have to make a subjective choice about which value we prioritize. So trying to clean this up is a huge undertaking. You can try to tweak the data before you train the model, or build constraints into the model during training, or even adjust the predictions after the fact. But every single one of those approaches comes with trade-offs, usually between fairness and accuracy. There's just no simple, objective fix.
Now, this problem of hidden bias isn't just in our code. It's embedded in the very process of science itself. This is what some have called science's dirty secret, and it's a huge systemic problem called publication bias. People often call this the file drawer problem. And it's pretty simple, really. Scientific journals love to publish exciting, new, positive results. But studies that find, well, nothing, studies that show a new drug doesn't work, for instance, those often get stuck in a researcher's file drawer and never see the light of day. And over time, this creates a scientific record that looks way more positive and certain than reality actually is.
So just how bad is this distortion? Well, get this. A massive analysis looked at years of psychology studies, and based only on what was published, it seemed like we could be about 99% certain that the effects they were studying were real. I mean, 99%, that sounds about as solid as you can get.
But then, and this is the kicker, the researchers adjusted their numbers to account for all the likely unpublished null results sitting in those file drawers, and that 99% certainty, it plummeted all the way down to less than 30%. That is a mind-blowing difference. It means things we thought were solid science might just be statistical noise that got amplified by a biased system.
Now, the good news is people are working on this, and one of the most powerful solutions is something called a registered report. Basically, journals agree to publish a study based on the quality of the questions and the methods before anyone even knows the results. That way, the outcome doesn't matter. Positive, negative, null, it all gets published. It takes away the incentive to chase flashy results and just rewards good, solid science. Okay, so let's just take a breath. We've seen that our subjective experience holds real knowledge. We've seen that our biases are leaking into our smartest machines, and we've seen that the scientific literature itself is systemically skewed. It sounds kind of bad, right? Does this just mean that objectivity is a lost cause?
Well, not so fast. A philosopher named Sandra Harding proposed this really radical and powerful idea called strong objectivity. And it basically flips the whole script. She argues that the old view from nowhere isn't objective at all. It's actually weak, because it just pretends the biases of the dominant group don't exist. She says real objectivity, strong objectivity, doesn't come from erasing your perspective, but from critically examining your own position and acknowledging your biases head-on.
Let's break that down. On the left, you have weak objectivity. That's the traditional view from nowhere. It tries to be value-free, but in reality, it often just reflects the unexamined assumptions of the people in power. But on the right, you have strong objectivity. This idea says that if you intentionally start from the perspectives of people on the margins, you can actually see the hidden biases of the traditional, neutral view much more clearly. It's about making science more rigorous by making it more self-aware.
And so that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Maybe the goal was never to achieve some impossible godlike neutrality. Maybe the better, more honest, and maybe even the more objective path forward is just to start asking a different set of questions. Instead of asking, is this perfectly objective, maybe we should be asking, okay, whose perspective is this coming from? And just as importantly, whose perspective is missing?